5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's go. Let's go. We're back. All right, guys. Thank you. All right, guys, we're back here on Fireside with another episode of What Are You Made Of with your boy, the unstoppable Mike Searock, right here. I'm in the house for you. We're bringing you another great guest to share the ingredients that go into making success. And, you know, today I had a conversation with the guest today, and I was like, dude, you got to come on my show. You're doing some amazing things, and I want to share how you got to where you are today and, you know, what's going into all this with my audience. And AJ said, sure. So today we have AJ Ascari. He's the CEO and founder of Drugstore to Door. He's a serial entrepreneur. He owns multiple pharmacies across the Midwest and is an active real estate investor, non-tech founder. By the way, what that means is that we have tech platforms like myself, and we're just non-techies. That's a possibility, guys. And he's the non-tech founder of Drugstore to Door and a whole other host of ventures he's involved with, from real estate to banking. AJ, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so look, man, I mean, this show's about the ingredients, like I said, and we always start the show off the same way, and that is, what are you made of?
Man, I think the simplest term for me is persistence. When I think about what I'm made of, it's persistence. It's sure, I think I'm fairly smart. Sure, I think I'm got some grit. Sure, I think I work hard. But I think that the thing that surpasses all of that is my persistence. Like there's a level of consistency that I just do shit when it's hard, when it's easy, when I don't feel like it, when I do feel like it. Even the podcast, like I'm excited to do this. I'm sitting in a condo at Breckenridge watching people ski down a mountain right here, chatting with you, just because I got to be in it, man. I can't let it. I can't even vacation. You know what I mean? So just consistency, man, persistence.
But yeah, man. So, you know, persistence is a common thing that I see in successful people, obviously. I mean, it's like, you know, it's just a common theme. It's what it takes, really. And that's why you said that. Now, what I want to do, though, is you mentioned work hard and all that, but I want to ask this question right off the bat before we get in your story. What are your thoughts on hard work and trying hard leading to poor results?
Man, I love this one. I see a lot of people work hard in the wrong direction. I think hard work has to be paired with smart work, you know, and I'm sure plenty of people say the same there too. But, you know, when you think about hard work has to lead to the next elevation or the next thing, whatever it is you're trying to achieve. So there are times, you know, people say work-life balance. I'm like, what the hell is that? That doesn't make sense to me. But there are like hard work spurts that kind of open or unlock the next door and then unlock the next door. And I think when people are working smart, then the hard work is fruitful. It pays for itself. Sometimes people go down, and I think we've all been guilty of it. Sometimes you work too hard in one area that's not going to go anywhere. And if you can't take something, learn from the failure, can't pivot, can't change, can't see that, hey, I've put X or Y or Z in and I'm not getting what I think I should get out. What's the pivot? I think it can be a nasty trap, honestly. Eat up a lot of time too. I think it's ego driven.
Yeah. Or is it serving them, not getting what they want, an expectation, their mediocrity? They use it as an excuse. Hey, I'm working hard. I'm busy. Right. I did a talk on this Monday. That's why I was asking that question. So, and you know, I dove into that a little bit. So one thing too is, did you ever notice that some of the success that you've had in the past came easy sometimes, where it was like everything just lined up and was in alignment, and that's why it was easy?
It's funny. The way I explain it is like, you kind of hit this barrier where you're like, shit, I want to quit. This is getting hard. I just want to quit. Why am I doing this? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the door and then the next thing just drops in your lap. And you're like, oh man, that was the corner I needed to turn. And then in the moment, the thing feels easy. And then you sit back and reflect, at least for me. And it's like, damn, that was that corner I almost didn't turn. And if I didn't turn that corner, this thing would not have dropped in my lap. And I've had that happen over and over and over again. So I get excited when I start to feel like that stress, anxiety, here's the wall. I'm struggling to get through this because there's always been something on the other side that I didn't expect.
Yeah, the old 3 feet from gold, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, we're 3
exactly
feet
what it
from
feels
gold.
like. Yeah, it's exactly what it
Yeah,
feels like.
and you always have to remind yourself it's never something that stays with you. Like it's never something that stays with you just naturally where you're like, "Oh, I'm going through this because there's something on the other side." It's like you gotta go through that first emotion that hits you. It's like, God, man, what the heck is going on here? And then oh, well, wait a minute, I'm supposed to just keep going. So
Exactly
I have
right.
a saying. I have a saying that I say all the time is thrust is a must. That thrust is a must thing is that what I say because Winston Churchill said, keep going when you're going through hell. And I just didn't think that was good enough. I thought you need to thrust through hell. You don't want to just take your time, keep going. Thrust. Like we got to move
Yeah,
fast,
yeah.
But so let's get into your story, man. Like tell me, where you came from and how the heck did you get into pharmaceuticals and everything?
Yeah, man, you got it. So I was born and raised in Norman, Oklahoma. My dad was an immigrant. He came and married a white girl, and good old Okie, and I was born and raised in Norman, Oklahoma. So if I got a little bit of a hick accent that doesn't match my face, that is why. Or I get called out for drawing some words out a little too long. But in Oklahoma, I have no accent, so let me make that clear. But born and raised in Norman, man. My dad came over here, went to school. Kind of the American dream story, just worked his butt off. Got a master's degree, started a company. So I really got to see somebody kind of build from the ground up when I was born, and that was my dad. And he became what I would consider a small business owner. He never created any type of enterprise or multiple businesses or grew, but he was very much his own boss. And I saw what that looked like growing up, leaving in the early morning, coming back in the evening. So I got a taste of all of that. And I don't know if that's some of the stuff that hardwired me growing up, to start going down my path. But my dad's Middle Eastern, and so he gave me a lot of options. And you hear this a lot out of Middle Eastern kids: is he's like, you can be anything you want to be, a doctor, or a doctor. So you just choose, but it's up to you, and just be whatever you want to be. So I started my journey that way. From as long as I could remember, I thought, well, I'm going to go be a doctor, and so I went down that road. Went to college, got my undergrad in biomedical science. And then my eyes started to open at that point, and I shouldn't leave this out, man. I was a little fat kid growing up. So I was a chunky kid, man. I got made fun of. I hated it. I was fat till I was about 14. And then I had some friends of ours started a little thing, and I was so hungry to want to lose the weight. I hated it. And they were like, hey, we want to train some people and get some before and afters. And at 14 years old, I'm like, sign me up, please sign me up. And from 14 to 15, I lost like 50, 60 pounds. And that's a pivotal moment. I bring that up because it taught me how much control I was actually in. Like that little thing at 14, 15 years old triggered something in my brain and goes, you know what? This is up to you, buddy. Like, whatever you want, you got to go get it. And if you don't know how to do it, you need to go find someone who knows how to do it, that can give you the tools to do it. And then you apply your hard work, your discipline, etc. So that was a big turning point for me growing up. So I shouldn't leave that part out of my story. But then getting into college, self-confidence changes. Like all those things change. I got into bodybuilding and started doing competitive bodybuilding through high school and college. And like it really changed everything. And that really transitioned into my work ethic in business as well. And when you're young, I mean, we're motivated by all the wrong stuff, like the sweet cars and the nice houses. And they're like, that's the thing. You're watching the rap videos and
Girls,
girls, the whole,
for some of us.
yeah, the whole thing, And so, that's what I was hyper focused on, man. One day I'm gonna have a big house and I'm going to have these cars and I'm going to do this thing. And that was the surface level start of what success looked like for me. And then I got into OU. I went and as I was doing my undergrad work, I decided, man, I don't want to be an MD. Let me go into dentistry. I'm artistic. I thought maybe let me go into cosmetic dentistry. And then I spent some time with a dentist who loved his job. Man, this is the dude whistling to work and the whole thing. Like he loved what he did, maybe too much. And I was sitting there just thinking, man, if this guy's not clocked in and working, he's not making money. Like if those two hands aren't doing the thing, he's not making money. And yeah, he loves his job, but he was, 30 plus years older than me. And I'm thinking, man, I don't want to be rolling into work Monday through Friday, clocking in, clocking out. Like, it was bothering me. And then I was working out the gym and some dude rolls up. So here's my shallow thing. Some dude rolls up in a brand new Dodge Viper and I'm like, damn, what does this guy do? You know? Then the next day I see him roll up in a brand new Range Rover. And then the next day he comes up in Porsche Cayenne twin turbo when they first came out. And I'm like, and he was in his mid 30s maybe. And so finally I got to chatting with him. He's like, hey man, I do pharmacy. And I was like, okay, I don't even know what the hell that, like you take the big pill from the big bottle, you pour it in the little bottle. And then he's like, oh man, you got a lot to learn, buddy. So he takes me out to one of his stores and, he kind of explains what he's doing. There's a catch to this story, by the way, but
no, I'm all ears.
Yeah. He takes me out to one of his stores and he's like, hey, what do you think this store is doing? I'm like, I don't have a clue, man. We just drove past like 15 horse pastures. Like, what are you doing out here to even make any money? He's like, well, I do about $6 million a year in this store and I've got 7 more just like it. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. And then he's like, AJ, I'll tell you what, you switch over, go to pharmacy school. I'll teach you everything I know. And I'll pay you 150 grand as soon as you get out of school. I'll start you at 150 grand. We'll go from there. Done. Next day I went and took the test and, started my path to pharmacy school, not even having a clue what I was getting into. I was just like, man, this dude's got this. I'm going to go do this. He's on the golf course, not working. He's got people working for him. So I saw what that scale really looked like. And so I went to pharmacy school, and then my 4th year of pharmacy school, this dude gets dinged for fraud. So I'm like, oh man, I don't get and this was back when like plasma televisions were like 40 grand a pop. He had them like in the living room, in the kitchen, you know what I mean? And I'm like, damn, man, there goes my P. Diddy dreams. Like, so I had to actually get out and figure out what it took to do this thing legit, which is a lot harder. The margins are tighter, but I got out and actually just started to attack it that way. I worked a year for CVS while I was trying to buy my first store. And believe it or not, I bought my first pharmacy with my mouth. I was $150,000 in debt from pharmacy school. And I bought that first pharmacy with my mouth. I convinced that owner to let me come in, give me a shot. So I would take my days off and I would drive 2 hours to this pharmacy located in southern Oklahoma. And I told that owner, don't even pay me. Just let me come in and prove myself. So I'd work 14 hours a day at CVS, Monday, Tuesday, drive 2 hours to this pharmacy, work for free, drive 2 hours back, work another 14-hour shift at CVS. And that was my first year out of pharmacy school, just busting my ass. And made a deal with them. I said, hey, man, now that you trust me after a handful of months, I said, give me the opportunity to come in. I'll take a big pay cut. And then any business, let me take half of that as bonus and buy my respective share of the business. And that's how I attacked my first pharmacy. I tripled that business in 2 years and ended up going and pulling a loan out, I think year 3 and buying the first pharmacy out.
What was the key to the growth? Like, what did you focus on?
Man, I focused on building relationships with everybody in that town. So I started making all the doctors my best friends, anyone and everyone who was providing. I just went and built a ton of confidence with them. So they knew hey man, if I send a patient to AJ, he's going to take care of him. Like he's, and I was actually what I call working the bench back then. I was the pharmacist in the pharmacy. So, I went to pharmacy school, got a doctor of pharmacy degree and came out, but sole goal was get in there, learn how to do everything, and then start to, grow from that point, step out where I'm not working the bench anymore. But in the beginning, I had to work the bench so I could learn it. So, and the big thing was relationships and taking care of people, man. When you do that and you do that better than anyone else, it doesn't matter if you charge more, and it just worked and it just kept working and kept working. Yeah.
Gotcha. So then from there, you started scaling that one and then you started looking for others and you ended up with multiple locations.
Exactly. So I bought my second location while I was in the works of purchasing this first one out. Got to 2, thought if I'm going to do 2, I might as well do 10. It actually went through a phase where I grew broke. That's another thing people don't realize when they're growing businesses. I got my tax bill literally the day before it's due because accountants love to run things right to the last minute. And I'm like, bro, I can't write a check like this. Like, you need to go finagle something. Like, I can't write this check tomorrow, I had to write the check, I had to figure it out. But, and people don't see that part, but I was scaling fast enough. I got to like pharmacy 4 or 5, and then I had all these paper profits. but they weren't offset by like cash in the bank and stuff I could go burn. And there's a whole nother podcast about that. But I hit that point and I'm like, oh my God, I did not prepare for this because of the fast growth. And so I went up to close to 15 locations, give or take, and then scaled back just a little bit because of all the other ventures I had going on. And now I've got a team who's going back out and they're going to continue to scale those pharmacies again. We feel like there's some right buy opportunities in the market with some of the stresses going on. So I've got a team put together who's working on that now. So,
gotcha. Awesome.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to point out with taxes, just so everybody knows, like as long as you send them something, you're good. You don't have to send the whole thing. You might have to pay some penalties and interest, but again, if you're in that situation, just write them a check of something. You got to give them something, and they'll send you a letter. Because look, I'm a serial entrepreneur as well, and when you're a serial entrepreneur and you're in startups and this and that, dude, you got cash flow management. You got to be a king at that. So just so everybody knows, he could have just sent them something. He didn't have to send them the whole check. I just want to make sure everybody's clear, but you will get hit with a little bit of penalties and interest. So anyway, hey man, who's better to borrow from than the U.S. government? You know what I mean? I'll make partners with me. So yes. Anyway, I had another thing on this as far as going out and doing. You're basically doing acquisitions now, right? And mergers. When you're going out looking for more, right? What do you find, I guess, in some of these pharmacies where they're having troubles? Like, why are they having troubles right now? Is the margins like compressing? Like what's going on right now?
Yeah, margins compress, man. This industry is really jacked up. And again, that's a whole nother like 20 podcasts we could go through, but the industry is jacked up. There's a lot of hands in the pot. I mean, margins being squeezed out everywhere. So the pharmacy is probably, especially independent pharmacy, is the closest to the patient, which means the impact of all the other things that are happening in our industry hit the pharmacy as hard as they hit the customer, the impact of that. And so margins are slim. And we have health plans where people come in and we will lose money. We're basically paying you to take the drugs, and so you got to be really. Pharmacy 15 years ago wasn't like that. You walk in the door, if you had a pulse, you were a fantastic customer. Like, take care of everybody. But because of the dynamic of insurance and all the things that have changed, for all the old players that just came out and said, hey, I'm a great pharmacist, I love taking care of people, and I'm going to take care of everyone that walks in my door, which we all want to do, they're struggling, right? Because if you've got 15% of your customer base that are negative claims every time they walk in your door, you probably need to turn the lights off on that insurance plan. And if those customers still want to utilize you, then they need to find an alternative insurance that will pay appropriately or use the preferred networks so it gets into this whole convoluted thing. So now today you have to actually run it like a business. I mean, you got to manage inventory. You got to turn it quick. Like the inventory expires, right? It's not like you're buying some shoes and putting them on the shelf and they're good for now. If you don't sell it next period of time, it's gone, money down the drain. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and there's a lot of owners out there who got into it when it was good and it was easy. I'm going to use easy loosely. It was different.
Yeah.
And you could just operate and be a good person and make money.
Well, that's why they have other products in there, and it's more of a convenience store situation as well, because that's where some profits come in, because you can get some bigger margins on those things, right?
Yeah, it's helpful when there's some margin and product and other things like that. But again, independents kind of struggle in this space. Like if you look at the big players, they make money on their front ends, and they'll make a lot of money on their front ends. And independents tend to have smaller front ends and don't sell enough. So they're really strapped to those prescriptions.
And this is going to lead us into drugstore to door. But before I do that, I want to ask you one question that has to do with more of overprescription. And the reason I'm asking you, my grandmother was, anxiety, depression, and she was always on Xanax and Prozac and all these different, I don't even know if that's exact ones, but those kind of drugs. Right. And she was overprescribed a lot. And, eventually she overdosed. My question is is there a responsibility on the pharmacies at all to watch out and look for red flags when people may be getting overprescribed?
Absolutely. And it's gotten really tight. So fortunately and unfortunately, we're put into kind of this police role. I mean, just policing what's going on. Because like anybody, there's good people and bad people out there. There are loose practitioners and very strict practitioners out there. And if you work hard enough, you'll find any and everything in between, right? And so we can, and we do have the ability to say, hey, I feel like this may be too much, or, I don't feel comfortable dispensing this. You'll have to go somewhere else to dispense it. And we can submit those types of things, turn those kinds of things in. And we've learned more and more over time as we see more of this stuff going on. But it's hard, right? Because you got to tell someone things are subjective, right? Like your pain tolerance, your 5 might be my 2, or your 10 might be my 1. I mean, you don't know. And so it's very hard to tell someone like, hey, I think you're taking too much pain medicine, because that's a hard scale, right? It's subjective. Or your anxiety, what might not even trip me up for 10 seconds might have you hung up for a week, So those become really hard things it's so subjective. So you just try to watch and say, hey, is this within normal dosing guidelines? Does this, kind of fit what would be expected for this diagnosis? And so that's kind of what we do on our side is when things come in, we just say, all right, what's the patient profile? Are the things that were prescribed, do they go together? Do they play together okay? So that they're not going to cause any interactions. And then is it reasonable for a person to be on these doses for the indications that the doctors prescribe them for? And those are kind of the checks we do before we dispense those medications. And they've done a lot of things to stop like polypharmacy. I don't know at what point, but people were playing the system, right? They would send it to multiple pharmacies and they would pick up different stuff at different pharmacies that didn't communicate with one another. And then they could go load up. And a lot of that's been solved, with technology. So there's a lot of ways, but man, it's a very tough. Yeah, it's a very tough one.
Yeah,
very tough one.
And or like how bars can be responsible for drunk drivers. Like, do they ever come back on the pharmacy as well? Like hold pharmacies accountable for things like that.
Absolutely, yeah. Gotcha. If something goes out the door that was way too high dosed or way off indication or made no sense, then they're going to come knock on the pharmacy door and the doctor's door and say, hey, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, and then the other thing is when COVID was going down, the hydroxychloroquine debate was all over the place and the side effects of that. And if it's, was that or ivermectin or both?
There's a lot.
There was a lot. Yeah. So they weren't allowing those to come out because they wanted to push the vaccines more. Did you, I don't know where you stand on this about and I'm just asking questions because I'm curious, but like when you were looking at that and some of it's very inexpensive drugs, right? Did you look at it and know, because drugs, the chemicals, the side effects, all that. Did you look at that and could you see what was going on? The fact that they were doing that just to push the vaccine possibly? I don't know that that's the case. I'm just out there.
It's hard to know. It's hard to know. A lot of times, like what they're trying to do is prevent people from going and taking too much of something that may have no effect or have more side effects than the benefits of actually doing something actively. And so it's a hard balance because it's not like we had time to say, all right, let's go evaluate the literature and the studies done on drug X or drug Y on COVID. Like there was none of that. So everyone's going, okay, this could kind of work this way. So there's a chance it might do this, right? But then there's also, and so, I mean, whether it's political play or not, I don't know. I'll stand neutral there. But as far as like there being enough data to say one way or another, we just didn't have the time it was more like crapshoot. Here we go. How do we keep our doors open? How do we continue to take care of people? Because man, my staff got COVID. Like one person in your staff gets COVID, then everyone gets COVID. Guess what? I got to lock the pharmacy door. And so we had to go through like just crazy measures to rotate staff out and bring people in and keep the customers safe and keep the staff safe. And we didn't lose a day, man. I didn't lock a door one time at any location through all of it. And there were times we had one person in that, in that just jamming.
And what about like the more trendy, holistic approach, natural remedies? Like it seems like it seems to be ticking up. Have you guys noticed a decrease in prescription medication over the last few years?
Man. Everyone wants the easy fix. I mean, that's kind of society, right? It's like, what's going to help me lose the weight the quickest? Let me just take the pill so I can eat the hamburger and the French fries. And I mean, we're that kind of society. Like, let's break it and really break it and then go back and try to fix it and patch it all together. I would love to see, and I will happily pivot my businesses for people to be proactive about it. Like I would happily pivot my businesses to support proactive measures to not get in. I'm a pharmacist and I'm a minimalist. Like I got to be on the floor with a headache before I even pop an Advil. Like it's just my
Me
nature.
too.
So I'm very pro just get out there and take care of yourself and do the things, physical activity. I'll go back to the fat kid thing. Like that's you want to fit, at least for me, take care of anxiety and stress and keep my life balanced. And man, if I didn't hit that gym and keep a decent diet at least 5, 6 days a week, I would be a hot mess, man. I'd be consuming half the stuff behind the counter at my place. Like, and there's a
Yeah,
lot of other factors that go into it, but just some of those simple things really have done a lot for me in stress management and just overall health.
I'm with you, dude. I hit the gym every day since November 1st. I think I've missed one day.
Yeah.
And I just went on this run because I was like, if I can get through the holidays in the wintertime, and staying in great shape, it's going to be easy come spring, And I just thought about that, keeping the weight down while you eating cookies and everything else, and all the
Same
great food
boat,
during the
man.
holidays, But
Same boat, bro.
tell
I'm infamous for like the 30-pound Christmas gain, and then I got to
yeah
spend
yeah yeah
7 months trying to get it off. So yeah, I'm with you.
yeah. I'm not doing that anymore. So tell us about the drugstore to door and what that is and why you decided to open this company and go after it with this new startup.
Yeah, man. So as I was acquiring pharmacies and we continued to build like infrastructure and centralized stuff and try to bring efficiencies to run business, you just you become an expert in the thing you're doing, right? The deeper you go into the thing you're doing, the more things you see, the more layers you can peel back. And then you start to find, hey, what are the missing pieces or what are the missing ingredients or what are we not able to do that others are out there doing? And this was actually started for me personally. So I was looking at our web presence and how independent pharmacies showed up. And let me be clear, like the number of independent pharmacies in the US is close to 20,000. It goes up and down between 19,000 and 21,000, somewhere in that range. So independent pharmacy as a whole is touching and taking care of more patients in literally everywhere you can dream of. So you'll see your CVS's and Walgreens and all these other players in different places, but go to Idabel, Oklahoma, or go to some podunk little. So the reach is not only metropolitan, but there's taking care of people in very rural areas. So the spread is very nice. Independent pharmacy has a very nice spread of connectivity to patients. And so what I was looking at was how are my stores presenting to patients? Like, it was 2020 at the time, 2021, something like that, right before COVID hit. And I'm thinking, how accessible are we to patients collectively as a group of independent pharmacies? And we're not. I mean, if you hit anyone's pharmacy, it was a glorified landing page. You go www.mikecspharmacy.com and it's a glorified landing page. There's nothing you can do there, no utility, none of the above. So as I explored all this, I decided, you know what, let's create something because pharmacies have access to medication, over-the-counter products. No matter where we are, there's distribution centers set up to where we can get things next day, regardless of where we are in most instances. There are a few edge cases you cannot, but in most instances, if I don't have it for you today, I can have it for you tomorrow, which in parts of the world and parts of the US is far faster than any other delivery service that you're going to get your hands on. And so I thought, let's leverage this, man. Let's create a technology that gives the independent pharmacy something that when a consumer comes to our platform, they can shop anything, they can fill prescriptions, they can book services, anything you could do if you walk through a pharmacy's door, let's make that accessible to the patient. And so what we do is we build out custom sites for the pharmacy so that it looks and feels and brands out the way that they want it to. But all of the horsepower, the engine, all of the things that make that thing work are drugstore to door on the back end. So that when you go to drugstore to door, we can actually push you to the closest independent pharmacy for fulfillment. So if we're in this podcast, you're like, man, I am feeling sick. You could go on, it would ping the closest independent pharmacy. You could submit a prescription order or a refill, or you could order some over-the-counter X, Y, or Z. And 75% of these pharmacies have internal delivery. So all we did was build the logistics for them so we could leverage their delivery infrastructure. So we're not using an Instacart or an Uber Eats or any of these other players out there that then go take your $5 aspirin and turn it into a $15 delivery because you got to cover all of the app charges, right? So because the pharmacy already offers these services and a lot of times offers it for next to nothing, anywhere from free to like $5, $6, $7. So we just leveraged them. And so that allowed us to say, okay, Let's give them something that's going to work for them amazing in their population. But then let's also create it in a way that we can leverage this network of independent pharmacies and we can push business so that the consumer's getting that instant gratification that they're looking for. They're getting that level of service that only an independent owner is going to give you. I mean, you know how that goes. When it's your own business and you're in it, you perform at a whole different level than someone who's getting clocked in and getting a paycheck. I mean, it's just natural. It's just natural. So we know, like, hey, if we push somebody here, they're going to get a level of service that's next, you know? And so that was the whole really idea behind the app that we started to build. And then as we started to build it, it was just like, man, we got to cover this. We got to cover this. We got to cover this. And all the complexities started to come out. I mean, we've cataloged so many items, but you could show up today to one of my pharmacies. You could hop online, and we've done this before. I've been on another little segment where we were chatting, and we just did a virtual visit. Someone did a virtual visit. They did it for an anxiety med actually that they were on. Got the refill sent to the pharmacy. The pharmacy was about 5 miles away. It was fulfilled and delivered all during the conversation.
Oh,
but just
wow.
just a really fluid stream. And that's what happens when the network's strong. So for us right now, we're very much in a growth phase to build the network. So there are certain pockets where I can say, hey, you can jump on the app. The network supports it. No matter where you are in this pocket, you're great, right? So we have kind of some benchmarks and areas where we're like, hey, let's go and make sure and pull this network together collectively. And then we can deploy to the patient. And then now you've got access for your family. So whether you're at home right now or in the podcast studio, or you take a trip to Vegas and you're like, oh, crap, man, family got sick while we're in Vegas, boom. Those things will translate because the communication will go back and forth across no matter where you're at. So
that's cool, man. Who pays for the service? Is it a subscription to the pharmacies or?
Yeah, so the pharmacy pays a monthly fee for us to basically provide them a fully customized website with all of the tools on the back end. And then there's a tiny fee that gets put onto the transaction that the customer will pay for the convenience or the technology or whatever it might be. And it's a very small fee. It's not even a percent. It's a flat fee. And so we get a transactional fee there as well.
Gotcha. All right. Awesome. So that's drugstore to door. Can people check that out now? Is it an online drugstoredoor.com?
Yeah,
or what is it?
People can check it out. What they'll see today when they go to check it out is they'll see all of the pharmacies in the network. If there are pharmacies close to them, they can absolutely start utilizing it right away. If there's not, I would encourage them to shoot me an email with their location. We'll end up putting something on the app saying, hey, request a pharmacy in my area, so that we can get pinged and know, hey, let's put our sales team over here. We need to go grab a couple pharmacies in this area and we can become a little more hyper focused. So they can find everything's linked out. I've got a rebuild going on my personal site. So ajasgary.com. Everything's linked out there. And then it's drugstoredoor.com as far as like the customer site goes.
Yeah, drugstoredoor.com. And finally, last question, what's the vision for this whole thing? Like, what is, at the end of the day, you know, a lot of times when you're building tech, you have all these other ideas and these features and all this, but a lot of times you say, whoa, we're not doing all that. We got to start with the basics and then work up to that. But what is the grand vision that you like really were thinking that you had to put to the side for right now? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying, right?
Absolutely. No, I want it to be, we want to pull the doctor network into this as well. So I want it to be so fluid that you can jump on your phone, you can have a virtual visit and your medications be dropped into your cart and delivered to you, or set up for pickup if you prefer the pickup method, and that all to happen fluidly and you not lose a beat. I mean, since we've been able to do meetings like this and Zoom, like I get heartburn when someone's like, hey, come meet me live. I'm like, why, man? We can do this in 20 minutes. You know, why do we need to spend 2 hours to make this an event? And I feel like we're all kind of that way. It's like, where can I put my time and my value? And so I want to give that to people, and I want to give it to them with the confidence of what I know independent owners would do, right? Independent pharmacy owners, independent practitioners, like really pulling all of this together because the network is massive. And so the coverage would be fantastic for anybody who's got a health need. My daughter got sick on this trip, Mike. I'm lucky because I own this technology. I'm a pharmacist. I make one phone call. It's brought to the local place and here, and we have 2 minutes and the problem's solved, where someone else has got to find the local clinic, get out, go schedule the visit, try to get their daughter.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I'm like, man, I want everyone to have the level of convenience that I have because of my being fortunate to be in this position.
Love it, man. Well, look, thank you so much for being here, AJ. I hope this goes faster and bigger than you want it to be. I just want you to, I just like want to root for you, man. So push some vibes your way, brother. And thanks for being here and sharing your story. Guys, if you like the episode, make sure you're subscribing, commenting, reviewing us if you're listening on the podcast. Also on Fireside, if you're not on Fireside, get on Fireside, get an account, come and watch the episodes live as we have them. But this platform has been great. I want to thank all the 10,000 some odd people that are following me now on Fireside and the What Are You Made Of show. Keep coming back. And until next time, it's your boy C-Rock. Be unstoppable.
5,